We're going to jump into things pretty quickly today. We've got a lot of great content to cover. And then at the very end, we'll take some questions. And then I'm going to go through a brief presentation on Thrive and the resources that you can access from us as well. But quickly, as people are still settling in, I just want to introduce our wonderful speaker that we have today, David Rhode, who's a Deputy Director of PennPAC. And he's going to give us lots of information and delve into best practices for nonprofits to craft win-win partnerships. So without further ado, I'll let David take it over. And as you're listening and the information is kind of settling and processing, please feel free to add any questions you might have to the chat. All right, David, take it away.
Thank you so much. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I am remote ×2 today. I'm out of my normal remote office and I'm in a hotel room, and I'm hoping the Wi-Fi and all kinds of other things don't happen in the next 45 minutes that make this a seamless production. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Partnership development is one of my very, very favorite things, and something I've had a lot of experience with, and something I've seen transform not only the organization that I've been involved with, but so many others. And so I really love this topic, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. Just a couple of housekeeping things, as we like to say. So yes, please put any questions you have in the chat. We will get to those either immediately with an appropriate interruption, because like they're only good questions. I know what I'm going to say, but I'm really interested in what you have to say, and so I want to make this as relevant as I can for everybody who's taken time out of their busy day to join us. So please put your questions in the chat. We will get to them either, like I said, either immediately or at the end. These slides will be shared with you afterwards, so you can take notes if you choose to, but understand that this stuff is going to come at you, and you will be able to refer to it as need be and as you want in the future. So with that, I'd love to get started. Let me introduce myself a little bit. I'm David Rhode. I have worked with an organization called PennPAC for the last year and a half as their deputy director. And in doing so, I get to interface with our nonprofit clients and partners all the time. Prior to that, I worked in consumer packaged goods marketing at Procter & Gamble and H.J. Heinz. I come at a lot of things with a marketing lens. I use partnerships extensively in those relationships and those jobs. And I ran my own nonprofit organization after that for 14 plus years. Left that organization in 2019. And now I do nonprofit consulting work of the great majority of my time with PennPAC. And I also teach nonprofit branding at the University of Pennsylvania. So love the nonprofit world, and bring a slightly different lens to it than many people do. And that colors some of the stuff that I'll be sharing with you today. So let's get started. By the way, I put my email address in the chat, and I also put in the email address of Ellen Howdy. Ellen is the director of PennPAC's Bay Area location, and she's amazing. And she would be your contact if you wanted to work with PennPAC in any way, shape, or form. She would be your first point of contact. But I'm also happy to answer any questions that anybody has about some of the things I'm going to cover related to what we do. So let me tell you a touch about PennPAC, and then we'll get into exactly why you're here today, which is to talk about partnerships. See if I can get into, here we go. So PennPAC is an organization. We are based out of New York, but we also have locations and teams in Philadelphia and the Bay Area. And it is an organization that is driven by volunteers, and they all are alumni of the University of Pennsylvania. So that is why it is PennPAC. And we work with our nonprofit partners to address a range of strategic challenges. I'm going to say in a minute what those are. We have been around since 2010, helped over 235 nonprofit organizations through consulting engagements and other services that we provide. And like you, we are a 501c3 organization. We are also a shared interest group of the University of Pennsylvania. So the university loves us, but they don't love us enough to give us the money we need to grow. So we have to do what you have to do, which is fundraise and take care of our own business. The strategic challenges that our organization addresses are the kinds of things that most organizations worry about day in and day out. We work on fundraising strategy, marketing and communications with our nonprofit partners, rebranding opportunities, organizational design, program analysis, financial analysis, growth strategies. You're doing a program in one geography, you want to expand it to another geography, or you have this service, you want to add that service, and you want to understand the implications of that. And then we work with our partners on strategic planning. We typically don't do full strategic plans with our partners just because we don't really have that length of time to work with them, but we work on pieces of that puzzle from time to time with some of our nonprofit partners. Our signature product, if you will, for PennPAC is our consulting engagements. We have teams of usually 6 or 7 consultants work on a full consulting project. Those are 10 to 12 weeks in length. And we also have mini consulting projects with 2 to 3 consultants. Those are 6 to 8 week engagements. We do those in the spring and the fall. We are just staffing our fall teams over the coming weeks, and those projects will kick off shortly. And then for those that might be interested, we will open up our application process kind of November, December for, I think in the Bay Area for the spring term. And so you can reach out to Ellen and find out more details about how we might be able to support your organization that way. We also have something called coaching, which are 1-hour calls, which we do kind of year round as demand requires on a specific question or two that's concerning to the organization. So we scope that out in advance and then bring in the consultants who have specific experience or perspective on that and run coaching sessions. And then we have PennPAC University, which is what this is, which is where we share content on a range of subjects that are themes that we've heard from time and again from our nonprofit clients, or things that they would like to learn more about. So we offer this product. So let's get started. Show of hands. And so since we don't need to do show of hands, we're not physically in the room, but you can type in the chat or anything you'd like. Has a board member ever suggested in this kind of helpful way that they can be helpful, that you should contact a professional sports team or a league or a major corporation for support? Has that ever happened in anybody's world? My guess is that it has. It used to happen to me all the time. We would have board meetings and board members would say, in sort of like this Captain Obvious kind of way, like, hey, you should contact such and such. And my organization was based in Philadelphia. So there's the 4 major sports teams, and there was companies like Comcast, and there was some other huge entities. And it'd be like, well, of course it's occurred to me that we should, reach out to them. But the same token, my instincts as an executive director was to turn around and say, well, did you have something specific in mind? Or do you know somebody there that could be helpful, or things of that nature? Because just lobbing something out that's like, it's like contacting the Gates Foundation or, whatever. Sure, that's a great idea. If we're not just one of thousands of people that are doing that, why should we reach out? Why should we reach out now? Who do you know there? How can you help? Typically get some blank stares back, and that would usually quiet the conversation down. But from time to time, board members have ideas, and we want to be good stewards. We want to keep our board members engaged. We want to act on their ideas. So this happens. So I want to talk a little bit about this whole notion of partnership, like sort of a partnership mindset, and how you as an organization, not just you as a leader, and you as a leader maybe setting the tone, but how you think about partnerships. And this is me being a little bit reflective of where I was sort of naively at the beginning of my career. So I had an organization which I founded, which provided baseball and softball equipment to under-resourced kids here in the United States and around the world. So logically, there were some Major League Baseball teams and the league itself and equipment manufacturers and things which were obvious sort of targets for our outreach. But the mindset I had initially on is really just thinking about all the things that the partner could do for us. They're big, they have this big platform, they have access to all these, sponsors and all these players and all this money and all this stuff. And we just look at me at the time, kind of all the things that could come our direction. And so I think of this as an entitlement mindset. Like, you know, why would they think about us, differently than somebody else? And in our situation, like, well, we have this mission, and they're definitely going to want to support us based on what our mission is. And I think almost every nonprofit organization I've come into contact with over the last 20 plus years has a very worthy mission. They're doing really important work. And so, the idea that we have a good mission, therefore somebody will want to support us is almost a non-starter, really. There are over 1.6, I mean, it depends on whose math you believe, but there's roughly 1.6 million nonprofit organizations in the United States. All of them, hopefully, doing meaningful work with meaningful missions. So the notion that because we have this mission statement of X and Y and Z, that an organization is going to want to support us is clearly just nowhere near enough to get us to where we need to be. We might have in our mind, like, I'm sure a certain player will want to get involved with us given our work with kids. In our situation, we had taken it a step further. Obviously, we were a baseball and softball organization, so therefore famous baseball and softball players, I'm sure, would want to help us because of X and Y and Z. And there's so many firewalls between you and a celebrity that you just can't get there in the traditional direct path that we may logically think should exist. And then there's this always helpful idea of, let's just call them, I'm sure they'll want to help us. So, this is what's part of this entitlement mindset. Things which are going to limit your chances of success, if not keep them close to zero. So let's try to change those odds. Let's try to get things away from being a chance of success of zero, and let's move them a lot higher. And how do you do that? So there's a lot of things that are important when we think about having a more productive partnership mindset. And this really is a shift. And it's a bit of a cliche to talk about a paradigm shift, but I think this is clearly one of those, which is, when we start thinking about ourselves as what we can bring to the partner, and all of the things that we have in our arsenal that may be of value, then I think things start to become possible. So it really starts with that mindset, like, what value can we bring to this organization? We're going to talk very specifically about some of those things. But that's what they're going to be looking for. They don't need, they being big corporation, don't typically need us, generally speaking, small nonprofit partner, to like put them over the edge on something. They have all the things in the world that they're working on. We need to think about what we can bring to them that's something special and different that they don't have access to right now. Now, once we've thought about that may or may not be enough, because we also have to think about the fact that we may be in a sector. So if we take food insecurity just as a sort of a sector within the nonprofit world, there are international organizations that are dealing with food insecurity. There are national organizations that are dealing with food insecurity. There are regional organizations that are dealing with that, and there are local organizations that are dealing with that. So and it's a critical issue, but even if the partner has a mindset that says this issue is important to us, and we want to do something to help, mitigate it, then they're going to have a choice. Why your organization over, in some ways, quote, a similar organization? So we really have to think about differentiation. We really have to think about why us over somebody else, because this is a competitive world. We are competing for limited dollars and limited bandwidth of our partners, and we have to make a value proposition for them that says, choose us over choosing somebody else. Part of the other element of working with it and bringing this partnership mindset, a productive partnership mindset to the table, is thinking about what opportunities or content or audience can we provide. So what I mean by that is we as an organization may have events that we do or a segment of the population that we are interacting with that that this particular partner doesn't have access to or doesn't really have the infrastructure or the means to efficiently engage with that group of people. It could be opportunities for them to volunteer. It could be opportunities for them in other ways. But what we have to think about is what do we do and what do we do sort of organically, not things that we can create that are going to distract us from our basic programs and our basic mission, but what are the things that are inherent to the work that we're doing right now that we can provide that would be of value and meaningful to a potential partner. And then I want us to also think about this long-term, not short-term. A lot of times what we think about with partners is what we'll call transactional relationships. So you might have an event coming up where you're looking for a live auction item, or you're looking for a sponsor, or you're looking for something else. And these things are fine. These things are good. These things are necessary in order for your event to achieve its goals. But if you are just simply seeking a transactional relationship with a partner, you're going to go about it in maybe a one manner, versus if you have a longer term view of a partnership, how might you go about it differently? And what might your definition of success be in year one relative to what might be your goal 2, 3, or 4 or 5 years down the road? So I really want, and I'm very transparent when I talk about this with potential partners, is we don't want this to be something that just exists for 1 year. We want this to be something that lasts well into the future. And I try to share that mindset and perspective with them up front. So if we're going to go about this business of having a productive relationship, we have to do some homework, and we have to do certain things that are going to, again, increase our chances of going from, let's say, a 0% chance of success up to a much higher number. And the first thing is a really important thing. And it's something that many of you, I'm sure, have already looked into. So I don't want to pretend like this is new business, but it also is shocking how many organizations don't take this into consideration, which is alignment between the impact of your organization and the giving focus of the partner. So what do I mean by that? Let's say it is a financial services institution, and you're doing your homework and you're looking on their community page or reading their annual report, and they're concerned about increasing financial literacy. That's something that is a sort of a goal that the organization has. You're an arts organization. You're teaching kids how to dance and do other things that are really important for its own set of reasons. For this dance organization to have a chance with this financial service, or there's just no connection there. You're dealing with something that is completely outside of the kinds of things that they're looking to accomplish. So effectively, you are not doing your basic homework. You're wasting both your time and theirs if you try to put something in front of them. So it's really important that you, at the most basic level, understand what it is that they're trying to accomplish philanthropically, and make sure that you can connect those dots really directly to the work you do. Now, saying that, running a baseball and softball charity, there's very few organizations where I would have gone onto their corporate page and seen, we really want to help make sure that kids all around the world have the baseball and softball equipment they need to play the game. That's not going to be something that's going to be in their giving principles or on their foundation, charitable focus. So what might things be? It might be youth development might be there. There might have been reducing inequities that might exist amongst youth. There may have been disaster relief. A huge portion of what we did was providing baseball and softball equipment to communities after they had been devastated by a natural disaster. So you have to read what they have, and you have to look at your programs, and you have to be able to make a logical story why your organization and what they stand for can coexist strategically. And that's fine. That's sort of a necessary but not sufficient element of looking for a strong partnership foundation. The next thing you need to do, and it's something that organizations already do, maybe they do it formally or maybe they do it informally, is curating your data, curating assets, curating impact stories. What's going to get the attention of a potential partner? Hearing how your organization is making a difference, seeing pictures or videos that help express this in some way, and then hearing specific quotes and anecdotes from families, individuals that have benefited from your program. So you really want to have this stuff ready, and you want to have it tailored to the best of your ability to the specific nature of that client. I'll give a really clear example of this from my experience. We used to not only provide equipment, but we provided uniforms to kids and communities in need. And we were going to present to the Minnesota Twins, one of the Major League Baseball teams. And we had this great picture of kids that were smiling with their new gloves in their hands, but they also were wearing jerseys that said Twins on them, because that was something else that we provide. And I knew that that image was going to be meaningful to the Twins when we were having a conversation with them. And lo and behold, we spent like 5 minutes on that picture when I shared that with them, and they want to know all about the backstory and where these kids were from, and then they're talking about when they were kids and how much it felt wonderful to be part of a team and getting your first uniform, and they're just going on and on and on about this. But we wanted to have assets that we thought would resonate and create conversation with our partners, with our prospective partners. And then the last piece of business that I want to talk about, and I think it's something that is overlooked, and it's the area that's going to separate your chances of success and move the needle the most from them being less successful to more successful, is identifying relationships with influencers to foster a warm introduction. So what do I mean by that? You may have an opportunity you realize there's alignment between what you do and what the partner cares about. You have your data lined up, your stories, your pictures, your whatever, and now you're ready to reach out with an email of some kind. So if you cold email or cold call or cold something to somebody at a company, the likelihood of them saying yes to your ask, and your ask is going to be for a chance to talk further with them, is going to be low. They're busy. They're going to disregard that. So much of what needs to be done at this point then is to think about the best way to get to that company. And so I typically say, it's whoever you know best and talk to anybody you can. And there's examples from my particular experience that speak to this. I was going to the baseball winter meetings, which were being held in Nashville, and flew into Nashville and was taking the airport shuttle to the Opryland Hotel or the Gaylord or whatever it's called right now. It's like a 15-20 minute ride. And somebody that was on the shuttle with me was the head of HR for the New York Mets. Lovely woman. We had a great conversation. We don't work with HR when we do the things that we do. We work with marketing. We work with community development. We work with charitable foundations within teams. We never work with HR. We just never do. But she became really enamored with what we were trying to accomplish. And so I asked her if she would be willing to help me get connected to the right people within the New York Mets so that I could talk to them a little bit further. And so very easily, I was able to follow up with her following this trip, and get her to send an email to the folks in the charitable foundation and sort of partnership side of the Mets, making the introduction. So from that point, it was very easy for me to get my first meeting set up. Now, we weren't able to develop a partnership with it. It took us a full-on 18 months to 2 years before we got our first programming in place with them. But I would have never had the opportunity to sit down with the right people unless she was able to make that introduction for me. So it's really not a direct path most times in terms of how you get to that first person. It's really whoever you can get to within a company that can help you get to the right person so that you can then have the best chance of a meeting. Kirsten, how are we doing on the chat?
I haven't seen any questions come in yet, but just as a reminder to everyone, if things are kind of landing and processing and questions come up, please feel free to put them in the chat.
Great. So again, I really want you to think this is where your board can come into play. This is where LinkedIn can come into play. It doesn't have to be functional in terms of we need to get to the person who's the head of charitable giving. Yeah, you want to get to that person, but what you really want to get to is somebody at a position of authority within the company who can then reach out on your behalf to that right person and introduce you in a way that says, hey, I think this is a really interesting organization doing great work. I'd love to connect you and see if there's a way for you guys to talk further. They've done their job at that point. Now it's up to you to take over. But that kind of introduction, that warm introduction, is critical. And if I look back at almost all of the great relationships that I was able to develop over the course of 14 plus years, almost every one of them had somebody else had a meaningful hand in getting me that first meeting. I looked at it at that point as it's on me, but I wouldn't have gotten to that point without somebody else's significant help. And so you really have to figure out who else can help you get to those right targets. So I want to talk a little bit about this first meeting. The old Head and Shoulders commercial is you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And that happens in the partnership world. You're not going to get two swings at, the partnership in terms of playing this out and laying this out. And I'm going to contradict myself in a minute because I'm going to lay out a scenario where you're looking for a second conversation with them. But when you make that first impression, you have a lot that you can accomplish, and then you have a lot of things that you can potentially undo in terms of the potential for the relationship to move forward. So I want to make it clear that even though we're interested in maybe working with this organization so that we can get money, or maybe work with a particular player or celebrity that they have a relationship with, or we want to do something quicker rather than slower, or we know that they have this signature event and we would love to be part of it, even though we know those things are things that we want, and maybe they may also know that we may want those things, let's remove those things from the first conversation. This is a first date. And in a first date scenario, we want to have it be kind of relaxing. We want to kind of have it be positive. And one of the things we really want to focus on is opening them up and having them talk. Instead of us, like I'm doing today, talking at you, I would really like to have the potential partner do that talking. And how do we do that? So I have 6 questions that I think are questions that can be asked in almost any first meeting. They're kind of low risk questions at first, and it's ways to get them to open up and to start talking. There's no particular order to these that matters, but I'm sharing them in this order, which is: are you looking to engage your employees potentially in a relationship with a nonprofit partner? And they can talk about whether that's a focus area or not. You might be able to discern that from some of the research you're doing. But again, you're just looking to get them engaged in the conversation. It's a really easy question, and hopefully you can get some insight from what their answer looks like. Are you open to talking about this partnership on social media? Again, we had a modest 5,000 or so people that followed us on Facebook and Twitter and things like that. The New York Yankees, the Dodgers, the Giants, these teams had like millions of people literally that were their followers. So clearly we had an interest in this relationship being discussed on social media. Social media doesn't really cost them anything, right? This is just them making a connection of how they are working with the nonprofit partners in the community in some way, shape, or form. But what we really want to do is get a sense for if this is something that's even going to be on the table. Normally the answer is yes. But again, trying to look forward and get an understanding of maybe what are the kind of things that they look to feature, and get a little bit more perspective on when they post something on social media, what they're looking for, gain some knowledge there. Then this is the first one I would say is kind of a critical question, which is ask them to describe some of their most successful partnerships. So here is where they are going to tell you what matters to them. they're going to say, well, we worked with this organization for the last 10 years. And the thing we like working with them the most is it's just a really turnkey relationship. And you're like, oh, turnkey relationships. It looks like they're looking for a turnkey relationship. So then you ask them, like, what is it about it? What when you say turnkey relationship, what do you mean by that? And then they explain to you the kind of things that are turnkey about the relationship that kind of make a difference to them. So this is where you get them to outline maybe some of the critical elements of the relationship that are going to help separate you from, again, the dozens or so organizations that are kind of in the same sector as you, or the thousands of organizations that might be knocking on their door in a particular year. You're asking them about what matters to them. And they're going to tell you because you've asked a reasonable question. And now we're going to continue on with this, and we're going to try to dig a little deeper if we can. What is it about our organization that interests you the most? There was this introductory email at some point, maybe, or some other thing that they saw about you. Maybe there was a video, or maybe there was a news story, whatever it is. But try to figure out why they were willing to carve time out of their schedule in order to have this conversation. There must have been something about your organization that got them to say, this is worth my time. And again, we're going to want to understand that, because we're going to want to play that back to them as, in whatever proposal we put forward to them in the future. And then the next thing is, because we always want their money, and they know we want their money, but we're going to ask for it in this right way, which is, for organizations that you support financially, what range does that fall in? Now, that's an adult question. I've seen organizations want to ask for $250,000 from a partner, and if they spent any time doing their research, they would have realized the average gift from that partner is, let's say, $2,500. So if you ask for something that's off the table, then you're really not going to have any chance of success. And frankly, some of these partners, corporate partners and others, are not. This is not where you're going to get the only element of this relationship isn't a financial one. There's a lot of things that they can do, or ways that they can add value for you, money only being one of them. But it's at least helpful for you to understand, like, what do those parameters look like? Well, our average gift is around 25,000, but for groups that we support kind of in the first year, that's usually something much smaller than that. Whatever their answer is their answer. You need to understand that, so that when you come back with them, you're going to give them something that fits within sort of like their view of what normal is in terms of getting started. And then I like to ask, would it be okay if I followed up with you in 2 to 3 weeks regarding how we might work together? Now, I would say early on in my career, I sort of felt the need to come in with like a polished pitch about what the ask was going to be. And what I've found over time is I like to sort of take the pressure off myself. And I like to try to use this first conversation to gather more information so I can inform my pitch. And even though my initial idea, because I know how I want to work with this organization, I already have that idea in my head. Otherwise, maybe I'm not doing my job. But I have a vision for how I'd like this relationship to go. But I'm going to ask for a second meeting so I can kind of tweak that pitch on the edges, and use some of this information I've discovered in this first conversation to make that pitch even stronger. So if you can get a second meeting with them, and that might, let's say the first one's in person and the second one might not be, but at least they know that they're going to hear back from you and something of that nature. If you come in sort of looking for a one call close, where you're going to come and put an idea in front of them, they're going to say no, because their reaction to things is to just say no. They just have to, like, it feels like you're reaching into their pockets, and they're just going to slap you away. And we don't need to do that. So, if we can come back to them and say, because now that I have this information, I'd really like to think about how I can customize something that meets some of the things that you've just described today, and make sure something is really tailored to the way that you want to do business. And I think it just shows a level of maturity and a level of listening that they would appreciate, because again, you're looking for this to be a long-term transformational relationship, and not a transaction of, could you give me tickets to the game that I could auction off or something like that. Like, you're not having that kind of a meeting. You really want to work with them over the long term. Some things that
David, can I just interject really quickly? We do have
of course you can.
a comment in the chat in case you want to speak on it. So it says you are describing cultivating a funder relationship, assuming we can apply these principles equally when cultivating a relationship with a partner that we are seeking out for in-kind support, only such as use of their physical space or time from their staff or volunteers. I'm not sure
Yes.
exactly what the question is there, but if you want to speak on any part of that, I think
100%. And so, when this is the sort of the next slide I have, and I'll jump back to the other one in a moment, but there's a lot of things that you can um, get from, or there's a lot of different assets that corporations have. So clearly money is not the only, you may be looking for a board seat. You may be looking for some that's going to redo your website. You may be looking for space that they have. You may that you, to the point, or you may have you're an organization and you are, putting on a 5K race and you want somebody to provide bagels afterwards, or water, or ice, or fill in the blank, whatever the thing is that's meaningful to you. So yeah, a lot of these same things can still apply. If the narrower the ask, then maybe some of these things apply a little bit less. But I think this notion of making sure that there's still alignment over the mission and trying to find the warm introduction into the organization, those things 100% apply no matter what you're asking for. So this list of things that you can potentially be seeking partnership from, or let's say you have a partnership which starts in one area, and then while you may ultimately want that $5,000 gift to grow into a $500,000 gift, there may be other things that you can add to your organization that they can do that in some ways doesn't cost them, because they look at their budget, their charitable giving budget, as just this strict line item, and they have to manage to that. But there's other things, there's other elements of pro bono support that they can provide, or in-kind services that they can provide, that could be incredibly valuable to you and your organization. Let's say you want to get in, your company wants to create a video, and it might cost you $20,000 to make a video, and yet they have all of this video production, you know, infrastructure in place. Maybe there's people within the company that would be willing to create a corporate video for you as part of a partnership. And so, there's a lot of different ways to think about how you can work with a partner, and this list is a partial list, a small list of those ways. And so all of the in-kind things, I think, should be on the table and taken into effect. So thank you for that question. So I just want to go back to one point, which is one of the things that tends to happen in these relationships, especially the bigger the relationship, is you as the nonprofit partner could easily get overshadowed. They're the big brand, you're the smaller nonprofit. While you may be providing this heartstrings, wonderful aspect to what's happening, they are fill in the blank, the big brand. And when the media is there, or when something is taking place on social media, you might get big-footed a lot, and that's just the nature of it. And you just have to kind of grow to accept it. Partners do want visibility. Whether they say they want it or not, they all want it. And so you need to be thinking about providing them visibility opportunities. They don't tend to give that much in terms of money, just that the charitable giving pie, corporate gifts and things of that nature, corporate foundations is 5%, some small amount. So we should be broadening our definition of what success would look like beyond just the dollars when we're thinking about partnerships. And this last area is something that you do want to hopefully not get distracted by, but they may be wanting you to measure impact or performance in ways that are new to your organization. And if that's important to them, all of our partners measure the following things when we work with them. And if those things are whatever they are, and those are going to require you to, hire new people and put a lot of resources, you might have to, if you're spending, $50,000 in personnel plus time plus this plus that to measure something for a relationship which is only bringing you $25,000 and whatever, the math is really simple there. This is a bad thing. So sometimes it's important to identify what you can do and hopefully strike a balance if they are an organization which is seeking specific performance metrics. That doesn't happen all that often, but it can happen. So I just want to want people to be aware of that's there are strings attached sometimes with partnership relationships. So I just want to wrap up this piece and then leave some time for questions. And then also Kirsten has some things that she wants to take you through. But I just want to leave you with these thoughts, which is, again, let's think about the mindset that you want to develop so that you can be sort of a value add partner, not an entitlement partner. You want to do your research on making sure that what the impact you're having and the giving focus for that organization align, and within that you want to then find the warmest possible introduction you can into that potential partner. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. Like that introduction is kind of everything. And sometimes it's better to chase a great relationship than it is to chase the best partner, because you want success, and those introductions really do make an enormous difference. And then lastly, bring questions and not a sense of entitlement to that first conversation. You want them to open up. You want them to kind of tell you what the rules of engagement are and the kind of things that matter to them. And so having some questions and having a conversation across the table will show them that you are serious about this business. You're not just looking at what's in it for you. You want to understand the things that matter to them so that you can truly be a partner that they're going to enjoy working with. And that's going to just build trust and build confidence as they think about, saying yes to whatever ultimate agreement and partnership you're going to want to construct with them. So I want to thank you for this opportunity, this time. Thank Kirsten for helping pull this together to give us a chance to be together. If you want to find out more about PennPAC, you can go to our website to do that. We're going to be launching our new website within the next coming weeks, but we still have a presence. We're just going to like the presence we're going to have in a couple of weeks, even better than the one we have now. My email address is there, as well as Ellen. Ellen, again, runs our Bay Area location and is amazing. And so please don't hesitate to reach out to either of us if you have any questions. Just throw something in the subject line that says references Thrive, so I remember where we came into contact with each other, and I'll get right back to you. But at this point, I'd love to just open up to questions and see what else is out there that we could be helpful with.
Looks like we have another question in the chat. It says, have you encountered a stigma against nonprofits that we are unprofessional or lesser value to work with, easier to push around?
Well, I mean, I haven't seen that. I tend to the situations that I've seen generally are partners are very selective with the nonprofits they will choose to become partners with, because again, writing a check for $500 or $1,000, and then if they write hundreds of those checks because they want to be good community soldiers is one thing. There's very few partnerships, real partnerships, that they will develop where they're going to sort of let somebody on the inside. I think they have a deep appreciation and respect for the work that the nonprofit community is doing. I do think that they are in a tough position. They're kind of they have to say no, 95% of the time to the requests that come to their door. So they are defensive from that perspective. I don't think it's against the nonprofits per se. It's just sort of the nature of, I only have this much money to work with, and I can only spread it so far. So I do think it's important to sort of acknowledge the challenge that they have. I think they appreciate that. But I haven't seen a stigma as the way I would normally feel. And I think if you conduct yourself in the manner that I'm sort of outlining, where you've done your homework and you bring thoughtful questions, I think it's only going to elevate how they look at you in terms of being professional and professionally run.
If anyone has any questions that they would like to verbally give, please feel free to unmute yourself as well.
Well, if there are questions that pop up, and you get off, it's an hour from now. You know how to reach me. Send the note to me. Kirsten will follow up with the slides. Don't hesitate if the question doesn't come today, but it's meaningful to you. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I really enjoy the engagement, and we would love, PennPAC would love to support you in whatever matter we can. And again, a big thanks to Kirsten for helping me be part of the resource room, and it was a lot of fun. So I think should I jump off? You got to keep going, Kirsten.
Yeah, I just have a couple of really quick slides to go through, just some information about Thrive. But thank you so much, David. This was incredible as always, and I think we all really appreciate you. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. My pleasure. Wonderful. Have a great day.
All right, I'm going to throw some slides up on the screen. I think most of the people in this virtual room kind of have an idea of who Thrive is and how we operate already. So I won't spend too much time explaining, but I do just want to highlight the couple of programs that fall into kind of the main strategies and buckets that we have. So for example, under our policy and advocacy umbrella, we have a number of programs, and our programs kind of fall into the buckets of strengthening people, organizations, and communities. So we do this through our Thrive Action groups, our tags, through cross-sector collaboration, things like town halls, and our nonprofit capacity building. So our Thrive forums, our onboard events, and then we also have a number of programs. This is just a small scope of what we do, but just to go through our strategic alliance initiative, for example, including our landscape report and our COAD, so our community organizations active in disaster. It's also called Thrive Rise, and that's for all of San Mateo County. And then we also, again, our special initiatives include our tags. Our environment and sustainability tag is one of our most well-known ones. And I'll talk a little bit more about the climate summit in a minute, but that is coming up in October. Just kind of rushing through because I know a lot of you are already familiar. We have a number of newsletters as well. Thrive Weekly and our job board newsletter go out every single week. And if you are a member, you are able to post on both of those newsletters and on our website for free. And speaking of membership, I just want to quickly go through kind of what that means, what that offers. We're really proud of our membership, and our benefits include a number of different things. One being posting on our website and our newsletters for free. Normally that's at a small cost. And you're also able to connect with other nonprofits and cross-sectionally throughout San Mateo County. Not just through our newsletters, we also offer a number of exclusive events. For example, you can connect with nonprofit executives at our Leadership Circle luncheons, if you're a member. And then you can also, as well as through our newsletters, share your important organizational updates, your event announcements, and then you can be a part of our Thrive Community Network. You can also promote your job and volunteer opportunities, that being through our job board and through our website. And essentially, this is an opportunity to represent your organization to potentially hundreds of prospective board members as well, and clientele as well. I also want to go through some of our upcoming events. So in August, on the 29th, we will be meeting in person at the Sobrato Center for Nonprofits. And this is going to be under our environment sustainability umbrella, one of our tag meetings. And this is going to be on heat. So we'll delve into the health impacts of heat and kind of what nonprofits and government resources are currently available to support the community. And then there will also be plenty of opportunities to share your thoughts on what's most effective and what you would like to see from the community and from the local government. And then in September, we are hosting a event under our nonprofit Ready Hub umbrella. This one is called Cultivating Connections. This is exploring cultural humility in the nonprofit community. So we are partnering with Silicon Valley Council of Nonprofits, SVCN, and we're celebrating Welcoming Week, which is the annual campaign that celebrates the work in communities to become more welcoming places for everyone, and that's including immigrants. And many nonprofits do play a vital role in supporting immigrants and their integration into local communities. So during the session, we'll talk to nonprofit leaders that work directly with immigrants and learn about their strategies for embracing cultural humility and kind of their lessons learned and tips and resources to support immigrant communities a little bit better. And then also in September, we're having our monthly VIOC meeting. So this is our Voter Education and Outreach Advisory Committee meeting. And this one will be focused on hearing what the local community organizations are planning for voter outreach in March of 2024 for the primary. And this is going to be kind of tailing our last voter engagement brainstorm session. So a recap on that and some brainstorming. And then very important, I want to highlight our upcoming climate summit. This is happening on October 11th. And this is going to be our second annual climate summit for San Mateo County. We're partnering with Nuestra Casa, Rise South City, and Climate Resilient Communities. And so we invite everyone who lives in San Mateo County and cares about environmental justice, climate justice. And we have a lot of fun stuff planned, especially since this is our second year of doing this. So save the date for October 11th, and we'll have more information coming to you soon. And I also want to shout out our translation hub. So this is free interpretation and translation for all nonprofits in San Mateo County. So if you are a nonprofit that's interested in expanding your language access for your community members, for your clients, I highly recommend going to our website and checking out our translation hub. And then lastly, this is the final thing. I just want to shout out not only our nonprofit Ready Hub, which has a ton of resources and information on all things Ready Hub related, but in between November 14th through the 16th, we'll have our Ready Summit. And so everyone who's interested in cultivating Ready Hub related topics into your organization, definitely mark your calendar for that. And that's it. Thank you so much to everyone for attending this session. I hope it was meaningful. And I think David hopped off, but just another thank you to him for going through impactful resources. And I'll be sending out a follow-up email with the slides and contact information and all of that. So let me know if you have any questions.